All right, welcome to Talking Investing. I'm Tom, and as always, this is not financial advice. Today, I want to talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. Bitcoin had a brutal weekend, including early this morning. There's some news that came out. I'm going to go through a few reasons why I think Bitcoin's having such a big pullback, what's going to come next. We're going to take a look at all of our normal Bitcoin mining charts, and we'll see what may be in store for them as well. So a lot to go through. I hope everybody's hanging in there. I know it's been a rough couple of weeks for Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. If you're new to the channel, we talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin miners all the time, so please consider subscribing to the channel, and of course it would help us a lot if you would smash the like button. Okay, I'm going to start out, before I get to all of our normal charts, which we will do, I want to start out and take a look at Bitcoin on the 15-minute time frame and then on the one-day time frame, because we did have a lot of action over the weekend. On the Friday live stream, we talked about the fact that the weekends have been very, very dull. The last 4 weekends in a row, Bitcoin was basically just sideways. Well, that did not hold up this weekend. There was a big pullback this weekend. Bitcoin was down about 5% over the weekend. So if you look at this 15-minute chart, if we go from this gold line, this is where Bitcoin was when the U.S. equity markets closed on Friday, down to the lows from a few hours ago. That was a 5.5% pullback. It's more like 4.5% as I'm making this video Monday morning. So this is a new local low. We got under 61,000. We took out a pretty strong line of support at 61,900. So I will let everybody know I would like to see if we can close above that on the one-day time frame. And you can see early this morning there was a big push to the downside. So a few hours ago, within about a 1 or 1.5 hour period, there was a big move to the downside, about $1,000. And I want to go through what exactly happened. There was some specific news that caused this event. Okay, so here you'll see Mt. Gox to begin repaying in July. Bitcoin slides under $61,000. So this came out early in the morning, and immediately that was those several red 15-minute candles we saw. Bitcoin took a big pullback. So Mt. Gox has 140,000 Bitcoin. That is a significant amount of Bitcoin. If you look at what this article says, basically a summary is defunct Bitcoin exchange Mt. Gox said it will start distributing assets stolen from clients in 2014 hack in July of 2024. So they are just going to be giving back the Bitcoin that they've held for all these years, 10 years now. They're going to start giving them back to the customers who own them. So the thought process is a lot of these customers have made a fortune in that time, and some of them are going to take profits on this, and there could be a little bit of a flood and downward pressure on Bitcoin. So even long before all this happens, just on the news of this happening, you can see Bitcoin took a quick move to the downside, and that is part of a larger trend. The last 2 or 3 weeks, Bitcoin has been resetting. It has been, the short-term trend has been down. So we'll take a look at the one-day time frame just to show you what I'm talking about. You can see Bitcoin tested 71,000 back early in July. On July 5th, 6th, and 7th, Bitcoin candlewicked above this $71,000 green line that I have on the chart. That is the 4th time Bitcoin has reached this line. None of these actually are back to where Bitcoin was in March of 2024 when it hit a new all-time high just under 74,000. So after it did that, there was a pullback. Around 71,000 has been resistance. We have now failed at that 4 times. And you can see on the one day from that time, we've spent 3 weeks really pulling back pretty much consistently. I want to show a couple other data points that I do think point towards potentially a bottoming out period. And I want to be clear, a bottoming out period does not mean that today is automatically the bottom. This could take a day, a few days, a week, but it does look like, if we look at some of the technicals, which I'm going to do real quick right now, we really have reset a lot of things, and it looks like we're going to find a little bit of support here sooner than later. Of course, please remember, this is not financial advice, right? We don't know the future. I'm just trying to take a look at what some of the technicals are showing us to maybe give us an indication of what's ahead. So the first thing I want to look at is Bitcoin on the daily RSI. So this is the relative strength index. Essentially, the higher this number gets, the more an asset is overbought and maybe due for a pullback. The lower this number gets, that means an asset is tending to be oversold and you're due for maybe a bottoming out and then maybe a bounce. So the natural lines here are anything over 70 is usually considered overbought. Anything under 30 is usually considered oversold. I will tell you, with cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, we can get into the 80s. As you can see, we did just get all the way up to about 85 in March. From hitting 85 on the RSI RSI in March, it did pull back all the way to 33, and in that process, on that day, Bitcoin bottomed out around $56,500. That is the local low. That was a 23% pullback from the all-time high. So you can see Bitcoin then took a run up in the high 60s on the daily RSI. And really over the last 2 weeks in particular, you can see the RSI has been going down in a straight line. And we are now finally, as of today, in oversold territory. So we are under 30 on the daily RSI. Now, we have to wait until the daily candle closes, which is still a half a day away. But at the moment, we are now oversold under 30. So you'll see, again, just like on the upside, on the downside, we can potentially go lower than this. Bitcoin has gone as low as 21 on the daily RSI in the last couple of years. But that is rare, and we are now oversold. So that's why I say, I do think we're starting a bottoming out process, but two things I would be careful of. We do see a green line on the daily RSI down at 21, so while we are oversold, and that's a good thing, it is possible we'll go lower. And then if we look at the Bitcoin chart itself, we do see, a couple of weeks of downward pressure. We just took out a key line of support. We're going to have to see whether this recovers today and closes above that. That would be very encouraging, but there is more room to the downside. We did just hit 56,500 on May 1st, so that was less than 2 months ago. So this is why I say there's a bottoming out process. So this is not a situation where I'm going to jump and go all in and massively buy here right now, but I am watching closely. It does look like, although this is a lot of pain, this is the volatility we talk about, and it's important to remember every single video and every single live stream, we talk about the volatility of Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. We are experiencing it right now. These 20 to 25% moves to the upside or the downside are very common. So here we go again. We're about 3 weeks into some serious pain. The last thing I wanted to take a look at for Bitcoin is the fear and greed index. You can see yesterday we hit 51. We are now neutral. We have been in greed for some time now. This is the lowest we've hit in a while. This is a nice strong reset. We do not have to get all the way down into fear. We are in a bull market right now. We're about 18 months into Bitcoin moving up in general. So we typically don't get into fear or extreme fear in those periods of time, but getting back to neutral is a very nice reset. And you can see we got to 51 yesterday. This could go down again today with the news and the move down in Bitcoin. So if we look at a 3-month chart, you can see we were mostly between 70 and 75 for several months here. And we've taken a big move from this area of greed back down to almost completely neutral. So again, I do think this is another thing trending in the right direction. Doesn't mean today's the bottom, but it does mean this is another indicator that we are going through a bottoming out process. Lastly, some more downward pressure on Bitcoin is the fact that the ETFs are showing a net outflow. This is a chart. Obviously, the days that are green, there's a net inflow into the ETFs, and the days that are red, there's a net outflow. So as of Friday, 8 of the last 9 days that the ETFs traded, they had an outflow. So that's one of the worst streaks in the ETF history. Obviously, it's a very short history that only dates back to January of this year, but this is causing more downward pressure as well. So you can see there's a lot of things in the short term that have been pushing Bitcoin down over the last 3 weeks, really. With that said, I want to take a look at what the Bitcoin miners are doing, because while Bitcoin is struggling, the Bitcoin miners, I would argue, are still in their trend reversal and outperforming Bitcoin. That trend did hold up last week for the most part, and we are a couple of months into this holding up. So I'm just going to take a look at a couple of these charts, the ones that I think are the most important. The first one is last week. So this is week over week as of last Friday. You can see last week Bitcoin was down 2%, so continuing the short-term trend of Bitcoin struggling, but most of the Bitcoin miners did outperform that. A lot of them were in the red, but nothing catastrophic here. Core Scientific did pull back 13%, but you're going to see over the last 2 months, they have had an epic run to the upside. So this actually is a very small pullback in comparison. We had a bunch of Bitcoin miners that were actually in the green last week on a week where Bitcoin was down on the week. So Hut, TerraWolf, Hive, and Bitfarms were all in the green. Iris Energy was basically at 0. Bit Digital and Marathon were down 1%, so they also outperformed Bitcoin last week. So this is a trend that's been going on for some time. We're going to see this is going to get tested this week as Bitcoin is hitting new recent lows and testing those lows back from the beginning of May. If we go to the 2-month trend, and this is now 9.5 weeks into this, so, well over 2 months, you're going to see Bitcoin in that period of time is totally sideways. 2% move in Bitcoin. All the Bitcoin miners are in the green. The smallest move out of the Bitcoin miners is 21%, which is both Hive and Riot. So that is compared to a 2% move in Bitcoin. So that's 10x. So a part of this is the first 3.5 months of the year, the Bitcoin miners were getting punished big time. So the Bitcoin miners are trying to catch up and make up for lost ground. We're going to take a look at that chart next, but you can see in the last 2 months, we have had a very strong and consistent trend reversal. On the flip side of this, you're going to see Core Scientific's up 238%. If you remember when we looked at the weekly chart, Core Scientific was down 13% on the week, and I said, that was a very small number compared to the run that it's had. So, it's not unusual to have a little bit of a pullback or a cool off after a 238% run up. Iris Energy's up 219%. And remember, this is in about a 2 to 2.5 month period of time. TeraWulf has more than doubled, and you can take a look and look for your own Bitcoin miner, but every single Bitcoin miner has had a good run basically in the last 2.5 months. So we're going to see if that trend continues. What we're looking for is for the Bitcoin miners to outperform Bitcoin for the rest of the year. That is what they're supposed to do. So obviously there's no guarantee of that, but we're trying to keep our eye on this and see if this trend reversal can continue. Because when we look at year to date, you're going to see the Bitcoin miners still have some work left to do. Okay, so this is year to date. So you can see this is now a mixed bag. At one point 2 months ago, every single Bitcoin miner except for CleanSpark was in the red year to date. Some of them were down 50-60%. This chart is now trending in the right direction. You can see there's now 4 Bitcoin miners that are outperforming Bitcoin. Iris Energy is up 86% year to date. Again, this is as of last Friday. TeraWulf's up 73%, Core Scientific 62%, and CleanSpark 57%. So all of those are outperforming the up 53% that Bitcoin was year to date as of last Friday. Now remember, Bitcoin had a big pullback over the weekend, so we will update these charts this week as time goes by. But we have 2 more that are in the green. Cypher was up 10% year to date as of last Friday, and Bitfarms was up 1% as of last Friday. We still do have some Bitcoin miners that are in the red. This is what I talked about. The Bitcoin miners do have some work left to do between now and the end of the year for them to perform at the expectation that we have for them, which is a multiple trade on Bitcoin or a leverage trade to the upside or the downside, depending on which way Bitcoin's moving. So a few big time underperformers. Hive is down 32% versus Bitcoin up 53%. BitDigital's down 38% and Riot is down 38%. So those are the underperformers. Marathon, which is the largest by market cap, is down 18%. So that's got a ways to go as well. Today, so far, Monday, has been a rough morning, so we'll see how the rest of the day goes. So that's what's going on with Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. The short-term trend has been down. That continues over the weekend. It was a tough weekend. Monday morning was a tough morning. We'll see how the rest of the week goes. So if you made it this far, thanks so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.